Humanities alert here. Today we're going to be bringing you books 1 through 4 of the Odyssey. So we have a lot to get through today, so let's get right into the book. Here's Drew Goodwin talking about the first part of book 1.
So this is book 1, lines 1 through 150. The first key question for discussion is, what does Homer ask of the Muse, and why might he do this? So Homer asks the Muse to, quote, "Sing to me of the man, Muse, the man of twists and turns." So basically what he's asking the Muse is to use him as a vessel to portray this story of Odysseus. So it's not coming from him, it's coming from the Muse, but he's just the one writing it down. Our second question is Athena's plea to Zeus. Why does Athena want Odysseus to return home, and how might this thematically contribute to the Odyssey? Athena basically, I like to think that she champions champions Odysseus, because Odysseus is really like strategic and cunning, and those are traits that like Athena has, and she really likes. So I think that Athena really likes him and just sees him as like a champion. So she doesn't want him to just be stranded on this island forever. And this thematically contributes to the Odyssey that Athena will probably play a pivotal role in helping Odysseus return home to Ithaca. The third question is, for what reason does Zeus decide to override Poseidon's will to keep Odysseus away from Ithaca, and how might this affect his role as ruler of the gods? So Athena comes to Zeus playing to override Poseidon's will because Poseidon's like really mad at Odysseus, so he's keeping Odysseus from his home. So Zeus just decides, hey, I don't really care what Poseidon thinks, I'm going to do what my daughter wants. So this kind of affects his role as ruler because he's like playing favorites here, more or less. I like to think that, and that he'd rather give his daughter what he wants than his brother what he wants. And that's it.
When back from Humanities alert, continuing off that amazing section from Drew Goodwin, we're going to be continuing book 1, lines 112 through 504, the second half. Let's get right back into the book. The first section we're going to start with is lines 112 through 123, Athena's disguise. She comes down as a good friend to Telemachus' father, Odysseus, named Mentes, and she tells Telemachus that there is news of his father's return and where he is right now. The second part we're going to be talking about is Telemachus' despair. Well, you would think he would be very happy about hearing news about the return of his father, but he's not. The reason being, he has continuously heard news of his father coming back, but it's never ever come to fruition. You see, here is a line from the book telling us about that. There is no comfort left for us, not even if someone somewhere says he's coming home. The day of his dawn, or the day of his return, will never dawn. Now, this sounds quite depressing. That's because it is, because people have continuously told him about how his father will return, but he never will. But now he may have a chance. Telemachus' outburst is our next passage we're going to be talking about, lines 422 through 439. The reason we're going to be talking about that passage is it is the section where Telemachus tells the suitors who are trying to, just going to put quotation marks around this, wed his mother so they can become the king of Ithaca. And Telemachus was going to be okay with this because he feared his father would never return and didn't want to step up to the throne. But now that he thinks there's a possibility that his father's coming home for real because he realizes Mentes may have legitimate information, he goes into his house and tells the suitors that are eating him out of house and home to leave his house quite forcefully. And he's supported by the son of Phoebus, or Polyphoebus. The next section we're going to be talking about is lines 457 through 479. This is when Eurymachus and Telemachus speak, and Telemachus realizes the stranger that came, Mentes, is actually Athena. At the very end of the book, when he lays down to go rest, he realizes that the one he had just talked to, Mentes, was the one and only goddess Athena. The questions for discussion are who the stranger who visits Telemachus, which would be Athena, or Mentes, and who it is really would be Athena. She disguises herself so she can be trusted as a source of information, as a good old family friend. The second question is, what is Telemachus upset about when he hears about news of his lost father, and why this upsets him? The reason it upsets him is because he is tired of constantly hearing these stories about his father's return and never actually seeing his father after all these years. The third question is, what news prompts Telemachus to confront his mother's suitors, and why he treats this news with utmost importance? This news, the news that he comes across, is the news that his father may return, but it's not simply this. It's the fact that it's come from one, the goddess Athena, that he realizes later, and a credible source in Mentes, and he treats this news with such importance because of that, and he tells the suitors to leave his house. Now on to the next section.
Okay, it's Drew now, and I'm going to start right here in lines 374 to 379. And this is one of the first Homeric similes used in the book. And what I find so fascinating about it is that it compares Odysseus to Achilles in a very creative way. So one of the last things we hear Achilles say in the Iliad is that there are no pacts between lions and men. But in this case, it is Odysseus and his suitors. And in this simile, Odysseus is seen as a lion coming home to a den filled with weak does. And with an infuriating rage, the lion, as known as Odysseus, will basically create a nasty bloodbath of these does, these suitors trying to invade his home. So this is very empowering to Odysseus, and I find it very interesting. Next passage is the fate of the great fighter Ajax, and how it represents the dangers of man's pride, his hubris. So, in lines 560 through 574, we hear that Ajax went down with his fleet, and first Poseidon drove him onto the cliffs of Gray, but he almost escaped until he said that in the teeth of gods he escaped the ocean's sheer abyss. And Poseidon, hearing that, was quite infuriated, and as part of the wrath of the gods, basically threw his trident into him and just knocked him away. So what's so fascinating about this passage is that the spite of man to the gods only resulted in man's demise. And otherwise, in face of a greater power, it's just wiser to be humble and allow the greater power to have its power. So the final passage that I analyzed is lines 654 through 656, and this is Agamemnon raising a mound, it is Menelaus raising a mound for Agamemnon in his undying glory. So what's so powerful about this passage is that Menelaus has absolutely nothing less marooned on his island, and how he still takes the time to perform a proper burial ceremony for his brother before he sets off is just very, it's very passionate to the importance of the burial rites to the Greeks and how important it is to have a proper goodbye to his brother.
Where are you going?
I don't want to screw it up in the recording. Oh yeah, hit the space.
In Book 4, lines 1 through 342, there are 3 passages that should be reread closely. This includes lines 24 through 42, lines 185 through 203, and lines 272 through 324. Some key questions for this book are, what does Menelaus do when Oedionius wants to send the travelers on their way? And how does this demonstration of Xenia represent Greek culture? In Book 4, lines 35 through 37, it says, the red-haired king took great offense at that. Never a fool before, Oedionius, son of Boethus. Now I see you're babbling like a child. So, Menelaus thought that was a very bad suggestion. And it shows that hospitality was a very important part of Greek culture. The host was expected to provide for the guest. In Book 2, question 2, it says, what does Menelaus think happened to Odysseus? And how does this represent, how does this show divine intervention? So, in lines 188 through 191, it says, "And I swore that when he came I'd give him a hero's welcome, him above all my comrades. If only Olympian Zeus, far-seeing Zeus, had granted us both safe passage home across the sea in our swift, trim ships." So this shows divine intervention because Menelaus thinks that Zeus denied Odysseus from returning home. And for question 3, it says, "How does infiltrating Troy show Odysseus' character? And how does his character contrast to Achilles?" So, in lines 272 through 324, Helen and Menelaus are sharing stories about Odysseus dressing up as a beggar and to get information to infiltrate Troy, and disguising himself and his men as a gift in the form of the Trojan horse. And this shows Odysseus' character being cunning, clever, and cautious. And this contrasts to Achilles' character, who tends to act more on emotion, which is apparent when he killed Hector, because Hector killed his friend Patroclus.
From Humanities Alert here, signing off. Come to our YouTube channel, Humanities Alert. Like, comment, subscribe, and if you need anything, email us at humanitiesalert@gmail.com. Have a great day, and just remember, let's get right back into the book.